According to the OPCW report, the original report.
What was the original report?
What's that?
What was the original report?
You
mean the draft by Alex, don't you? Not the original report. Yeah, so you mean the Alex draft report, the one that wasn't published. Okay, the original report, right. So that's because witness testimonies hadn't been completed yet.
Because I'd love to hear your evidence for why or how you believe the cylinders were dropped from the helicopter.
Okay, so we're conceding the helicopter point. Okay, gotcha. So there were helicopters. Now we're talking about the chemical, or them dropping like the chemical canisters.
I never said that there weren't. I just said not necessarily. But let's continue.
Okay, so let's try to build this up piece by piece. So do you acknowledge that there were chlorine gas canisters found at locations 2 and 4?
There were cylinders there.
Okay. And do you acknowledge that the cylinders were consistent with the method and the technique that would traditionally be used to deploy a chlorine chemical weapons attack?
What are you alleging is a typical way to deploy a chemical weapons attack? Are you referring to dropping by a helicopter?
No, I mean that the canisters themselves were of the appropriate dimensions, contained the appropriate mechanical components to contain highly pressurized chlorine gas. Essentially, that these are the types of munitions that would be used to do such a thing. These are also consistent, basically, with the types of designs that have been used in previous chemical weapons attacks in Syria.
So, I don't contest that.
Okay. How do you suspect those arrived there?
The investigation concluded that there was no evidence that a helicopter dropped them, first of all.
But wait, hold on. I request that you use... Please use specific language. Not the investigation. The investigation didn't make the claims you're making. You're talking about the personal report from Ian Henderson, the one that was never published.
The engineering investigation, which
there were other engineering investigations. You're talking specifically about the one that was published by, not published even, that was produced by Ian Henderson. Just be specific with your language, okay? There were other engineering reports that disagreed with what he said. You're talking just about Ian Henderson.
Open roofs, open windows, and 2 cylinders.
They have open windows and trenches, dog. There's not even a roof on those, and they still got pulmonary edema in seconds. That's crazy. We haven't gotten to that claim yet. The claim you're making right now is that if chlorine was released, wait, please, we can't. Normally, when I talk with guys like you, they start to realize they're out of their depth, and they don't stop talking because they know every additional point is another nail in their grave, okay? We need to get point by point. We're like 1/20th of the way through this. I did way too much reading on this to let you get away with only being owned on 1/10 of the points that I read up on, okay?
You read Wikipedia, Bellingcat, and relied on Patrick Hillsman in your DMs.
Then you should have a very easy time. By the way, another thing Holocaust deniers like to say, oh yeah, you got your information from the ADL and from ex-Goldberg historian? Okay. Why don't we take a look at the evidence available rather than just assuming that it's not valid based on the preconceived biases you have about their agents, okay? If I wanted to, I could just scream that you're an RT agent. I'm trying to actually own you based on evidence. Let's get to this point.
You're wrong that pulmonary edema would develop quick.
Very specifically.
Which I'm asking you to cite.
I said very specifically, this document does not speak on the existence of the chemical weapons attack, but it still indicates...
It was a chemical attack.
Do you want to wait? So I keep telling you what I said, and you're like, oh, then why did you say this? And then you say I said a thing I didn't say. I've been very clear about what I said. Do you want to like move forward? You're not even arguing against my positions at this point. We can read this together if you want to. You're asking me to cite a thing that I don't believe. Why? Like, how long do you want to spend on? Yeah, because the report wasn't on the chemical weapons attack. The reason why this wasn't published to begin with is because the inference here was that there was some degree of responsibility on the part of the Syrian rebel group for the chemical weapons attack. It was because this document seems to assert that the chemical weapons attack was a product of Syrian rebellion interference that it didn't get published to begin with. This document is not about there not being a chemical weapons attack. It is only about him talking about the logistics of the delivery of the bomb, statements which, by the way, were contested later from within the OPCW significantly, which is why they weren't included in the final report.
You realize that every single member of the fact-finding mission
He's going
team
to keep debating a thing that I don't believe.
Agreed that it was highly unlikely and there was no evidence to suggest that helicopters dropped the cylinders. Every single member except for one.
Do you have evidence of that claim?
It's
also, we weren't even on this yet, man. We weren't even on the whistleblower shit yet. Okay, so is your claim then that the canisters were placed there, like, manually? Like, they weren't dropped from helicopters, but helicopters were seen at the location, like, coincidentally. Like, a bunch of witnesses saw the helicopters, but then there just happened to be these canisters there, and it was like a coincidence that those two things happened. And also that there was damage to the buildings, which, like, correlated with the weight and the size of the canisters being dropped from a high velocity at a high altitude. Because Syrian forces didn't actually allow OPCW investigators to one of the locations. That's why people talk about locations 2 and 4. They didn't actually let them there. Syrian forces were like, oh yeah, you can't come into this location. The doors are locked. That's not a joke. The Syrian military said that. That's not a joke. Anyway, there's no other explanation for this degree of erosion this quickly. Like, seriously, this is not something that happens naturally. This is about 2 months of erosion. This is insane. And it's consistent with exposure to chlorine gas, in spite of the fact that there was paint over it. Like, painting it will make it take much longer to erode, but it happens anyway. Additionally, other metal at the scene was eroded. Lamps, doorknobs, the little metal bits that hold up lights. Corrosion, not erosion. Sorry, my apologies. Corrosion, not erosion. There was evidence at the scene of substantial corrosion of metal in the area, and there were also chemical residues left on wood at the area that were consistent with the chemical reactions that would take place after exposure to chlorine gas. Additionally, one of the counter-arguments made by people like the dumbfuck that we just had on is that the reason why these trace amounts of chlorine and the chemical byproducts of chlorine were present in the area is because they were produced by bleach cleaning solutions. On the walls, roofs, rubble, infrastructure, piping, scaffolding, very dedicated housekeeping there. Also, there were types of corrosion, that could not take place as a product of bleach. Guys, bleach don't do this. Sorry. Bleach don't do this. It don't. Sorry. Wait. You can't, wait, please don't turn into, like, I hypocrite levels of brain dead yet. Please, God, give me a second, okay? You claimed...
Drop the cylinders, right?
Oh, no. It's already happening.
No, is that what you allege?
So you claimed that Assad would have no reason to bomb Douma, but they were currently shelling Douma. So
I said they would have no reason to bomb with chemical cylinders.
You didn't say that, actually. You just said they would have no reason to send helicopters on a bombing run.
They have no reason to bomb with chemical cylinders, which is what you allege.
Wait, no, you didn't actually say that. You said they would have no reason to send helicopters in a bombing run. So you're saying they did have reason to send helicopters in a bombing run? They did have reason to do that?
No, they have no reason to drop chemical cylinders.
We're not talking about chemical cylinders yet. We're talking about the helicopters, okay? Hold on. So you're saying then that they did have a reason to send helicopters on bombing runs. Not chemical bombing runs, but a bombing run. Because they were already shelling the city.
Syria, the Syrian government, had a long history of shelling Douma in an effort to regain control. But what you are alleging is that chemical cylinders were dropped there.
So again, we're not talking chemical cylinders yet. We're just talking about the act of bombing with a helicopter, which you said they didn't have a reason to. So again, for like the 5th time, you believe then that Assad did have reason to bomb with helicopters, considering he was currently shelling the city, just not with chemical weapons. But you do believe he had a reason to use helicopters to bomb the city. Not with chemical weapons, but just with conventional armaments.
Not necessarily, but the allegation is that those helicopters dropped chemical cylinders.
I know that. Can we take it one claim at a time instead of you trying to run from this one by jumping to the next one? Why would they not have a reason to run helicopter sorties over Duma when they were shelling the city?
Dropped chemical cylinders into the buildings. That is the principal claim.
No, the principal claim we're on right now is whether or not they would even have a reason to bomb the city. So they were already shelling the city. So did they have a reason to bomb it as well? This is yes or no.
Long history of shelling the city. Yes.
They were currently shelling the city.
They had a long history.
They were currently... Wait, are you shorting out right now? They were currently, on that day, April 7th, 2018, bombing the city, shelling the city. And you said they would have no reason to run a helicopter sortie. Quit running to other points, dude.
Cylinders were dropped from those helicopters.
Oh my... Are you broken?
That's your claim. That is your claim. Are you broken?
You need to answer this one, and then we can move to the chemical weapons. Do you believe the Assad government would have had a reason to run a helicopter sortie over that city? You said they didn't, but they were shelling the city at the time.
Not necessarily, but your claim is that...
Wait, why not? Answer that. Why not necessarily? Why would they not be willing to bomb the city when they were currently shelling it and have bombed it many times before?
Because they were on the verge of regaining control. Not necessarily they could have. I don't know. That's not what the investigators were looking into.
And why'd you make that claim? Then why were they shelling the city? If they already were on the brink of winning.
Your claim that we are here to debate is whether or not those helicopters
dropped... Oh my God. Dude, you can't make spurious claims and then get mad when I call you out on them. If you made the claim, you should be able to defend it. You made the claim that there's no reason for them to run a helicopter to bomb the city, okay?
Okay, so let's talk about the chemical cylinders.
Okay, so you're acknowledging then that the Assad did have justification or like a reason to send helicopters to bomb Duma because he was already shelling it and he's bombed it many times before. There's no reason to contest that.
Not necessarily.
What? Then can you justify that claim? Well, are you just saying it to like reflexively defend Assad? Are you like between his like legs right now? Like why are you making claims and then refusing to defend them?
Because it could have been. I don't know. That's not the investigation, and I'm not going to allege to know this.
Okay. So you'll make claims, and then when called out on them, you'll be like, well, I don't know.
No. Let me finish.
Anyway, glad he still watches me. Anyway, okay, so first of all, the claims that this was a false flag orchestrated by the United States are ridiculous because the United States really didn't have anything to gain from it. They didn't make any significant strategic advances in the region. And additionally, the consequences of the chemical weapon attack ended up leading the Syrian rebels to flee from Duma, giving the Assad military forces a hold up in the Syrian civil war. So the United States orchestrated a false flag to achieve essentially nothing and then also gave a strategic advantage to Assad, and it happened 3 years ago. Later, Assad even bragged that he got off easily after the chemical weapons attack. There's so much stuff that we didn't even have the opportunity to go over. Oh my God. First of all, when the OPCW initially tried to do an investigation of what took place in Duma, the Russian and Syrian military forces blocked them, citing security concerns, except they were never able to provide any evidence of them. Then, when the OPCW was finally able to arrive about a week later, the Russian and Syrian forces suddenly, were not present, and then there was small weapons fire that attacked the OPCW investigators. Security concerns, which forced them away. Somehow, this was done in spite of the fact that Russian and Syrian forces controlled the city. The rebel forces had already fled. So what security concerns? And also, if it was a U.S. false flag, why the fuck would they be wanting to keep the OPCW from investigating the claims that they believed could support their arguments later? The Russian and Syrian governments prevented the OPCW from investigating the site for 2.5 weeks. A little over 2 weeks, I think. Thereabouts, something like that. A long time, okay? So after all of this obfuscation, keep in mind the OPCW was delayed, but other organizations weren't, okay? Other organizations like the New York Times and international humanitarian and anti-war organizations, they were present immediately after the attack, and they were got witness testimonies and found overwhelmingly people arguing that there was a chemical weapons attack, overwhelmingly arguing that that they saw helicopters. Like, all of the testimonials that they gave really ended up aligning with the narrative that I produce. The only notable instance of a person disagreeing with that narrative was a young boy and his father who claimed that there was no such attack. That person right there apparently were interviewed at a military base, and they were prompted by the Russian military, you know? So, like, here we have one witness who disagrees with the overwhelming, like, amount of witness testimonies, and it's this kid and his father. Can you go through your evidence, Vaush? I want to hear it so I know what to say to deniers. Do you guys want do you guys want all the evidence? Do you want me to, like, dump it on you? So that guy was a weaselly little fucking snake, so he wouldn't commit to any of his actual beliefs, but he believes, and a lot of other people like him believe, that it was a false flag attack that the United States and Syrian rebels orchestrated to justify the 2018 missile strikes, which, by the way, caused no Syrian deaths and then ended up killed nobody, and only destroyed facilities which the U.S. military claimed were chemical weapon facilities, and then chemical weapon attacks stopped afterwards. So that sure was some crazy WMD false flag that they did. They did a false flag to show the Syrian government did something that they already do all the time anyway, in order to cause 3 deathless strikes on facilities. You're still streaming video to Jackson? No, I'm not. Whatever he's so far. Okay? We have overwhelming witness reports indicating that helicopters arrived at the scene and that a gas attack took place. Corpses found with symptoms comparable to those of with severe chlorine gas exposure. Additionally, the only counter-argument to the suggestion that these corpses died of chlorine gas poisoning was from the minutes of a toxicology interview, which were never published because they were preliminary and they didn't even have full information on the presence of the corpses. The report from the toxicologists was done in the assumption that people wouldn't be in a contained area. However, the actual facts of that bombing were basically, like, perfectly orchestrated to maximize the death and the casualties in people at lower levels. Again, keep in mind, chlorine gas is heavier than air. The roof being blown out, which the guy we were talking to kept seeming to think was some kind of own, means nothing. Chlorine gas doesn't go up. It goes down. It doesn't go up. It goes down. It hit the roof, and the corpses were on the lower level. Additionally, there are videos on the scene of people freaking out, dying. You can see, like, losing their shit because there's a chlorine gas canister right there. Additionally, here's another piece of evidence. Now, the tankies are going to get super triggered because this is from Bellingcat, but I'm only showing it on Bellingcat because the alternative would be to show it in a very, very graphic video that I can't show on Twitch because it shows a lot of bad stuff. So I want to show you 2 photos right here. I'm just taking the photo from Bellingcat, but again, this is verifiable through other sources, you know. Here are 2 pictures right here. Are you looking at it? These are 2 pictures of the chlorine gas canister. This is the one that didn't break all the way through the roof. This is the one that got lodged partially into the building. The one on the left is a frame from a video taken while people was dying. The one on the right was taken by investigators much later. Note the rubble. Or the rust, my apologies. Now, what do you notice about the one on the left? Is there anything odd about the coloration that you see? Oh, wait. It's white. Now tell me, did you see any white in the images that we were looking at previously? It's a yellow canister. Why is it white here? Well, in this video that was taken, this bomb had only just been dropped. Do you know why it's white? This is frost. This is a process called auto-refrigeration. When highly pressurized gases quickly release from a contained area, the container and the surrounding environment cools down. It's an endothermic reaction. Have you ever had one of those little spray cans, the ones that spray air on your keyboard to clean it up? Notice how they get really, really cold super, super quick? That's called auto-refrigeration. I won't claim to understand the entireties of the chemical